Welcome back in the place to be with the CBDC Assets Group. Thank you all for being a part of the group. As you can see, I'm donning this championship hoodie on our way to the championship. But today we got some interesting stuff to talk about. We got a battle between Solana and XRP for the number 4 spot in the market cap. Right now, Solana is sitting, as I shoot the video, Solana is sitting at 116.29 billion and XRP is sitting at 94.32 billion. So there's a battle going on. Who's going to overtake who? And it's just something to keep your eye on. It's always fun to compete with other cryptocurrencies in that regard. Now, there's rumors going around of a World Economic Forum employee who leaked some information about an XRP and HBAR collaboration on something, on payment systems for the World Economic Forum, which really isn't a shock because they've been rumored to partner before. So the World Economic Forum member, Sean O'Rourke, he hinted at a big announcement that's coming up. But Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, and the HBAR co-founder, Lemon Bayard, have spoken in the past about the possible collaboration that the two companies could do. So it's really not too shocking to hear that they could. It's just interesting to hear that it's a World Economic Forum push. And one of the reasons, again, why I always say, if you're going to pick a crypto, not financial advice, pick one with some utility that solves real world problems, because as you can see, those two are being mentioned for solving massive real world problems. Okay, but both of those companies are also associated with other things like the MICA group. It's MICA that is a part of making sure that cryptos meet and pass European regulations. And so they're already on regulatory governing boards together. So it fits the narrative and it plays along into the fact that they could possibly be working. Now, I don't normally like spreading rumors, but based off of those partnerships in the past and both of them sitting on regulatory bodies, I'm going to go ahead and say that. But take it with a grain of salt. And last but not least, we have Brian Armstrong, who's complaining and saying that Senator Warren and Gary Gensler are on a crackdown against crypto and his company. If you're unaware who Brian Armstrong is, he's the CEO of Coinbase, a bald head fellow. Somebody on Twitter said he looks like a Goomba. That's not me. I don't know. I'm just telling you what they said. But yeah, he's claiming that Senator Warren and Gary Gensler are attacking him and his industry, which, admittedly so, he has a little right to complain. He's saying that that their harsh stance on crypto is the reason that the Democrats lost the election. Now, I don't know if I'd go that far, but that's his opinion, and he's entitled to it. But it's just it's a little poking your little brother while you can, I think. But he did mention that his bank accounts were seized, and I know that also had happened to the CEO of Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse. They were told that they needed to move their money elsewhere because they were too risky of an investment to be banking at a bank that they've banked with for decades. Go figure. And they're billionaires. So if sounds like they're being attacked. But that's all I got for you guys today. I'm going to finish off with this video of Chris Larson's and Brad Garlinghouse speaking about where we're at currently in crypto and what they foresee and the value of ETFs. I hope you like it. I'll see you guys on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And remember, if you don't get right, you're going to get left behind.
Talk about that, actually. Do you think, first of all, do you think they're connected? And secondly, do you think that the advent of ETFs in general, leaving aside an XRP ETF, but just in general of ETFs, do you think that that is a marker of an evolution? And what do you think that means for how the regulatory environment, particularly prudentials, kind of see these assets, given that they're now being embraced in many ways, some of them, by institutions? Chris, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ETF just represents another step in the evolution of these things going mainstream, right? And that's a good thing. I also think that lends itself to more long-term holding. And these art currencies, they do have a key role in payments, but I think they also are a macro hedge on a world of uncertainty. And particularly in this world where you see governments pretty much all around the world sort of giving up on sort of deficit vigilance, right? So it doesn't matter the party anymore. We sort of lost our minds on deficits. Look, we're all going to have to adjust. There's going to be a price to be paid at some point. But I think that's part of the reason why digital assets, fit into the world very nicely. And no surprise that happened after the '08 crisis. And I think we still have a lot of elements that make people want these assets. So ETFs are a nice way for long-term holding. That's probably more constructive to these markets anyway, right, as long-term holders. And I think it moves away from any notion of like, hey, this is just speculation. There's clearly speculation in any market. Some of that can be even healthy because it offsets folks that are trying to hedge, as any sort of economist would tell you. But I think it's a good development.
I'll just say I think it's been exciting to watch this is no longer the fringe. It's BlackRock. These are major players that have entered the space. And the Bitcoin ETF, my understanding, is the most successful ETF ever introduced. I think there's $17 billion of inflows. Now, again, just because I can't pass an opportunity to take a pot shot at the SEC, keep in mind they were actually dragged kicking and screaming into the approval of the ETF. A court ordered them to kind of finally, okay, the quote was, you're being arbitrary and capricious in their implementation of the law. And so the Bitcoin ETF, it's like there's clearly a lot of demand, and that has been successful. Interestingly, there were 2 filings around an XRP ETF, and then the next day the SEC announced they're going to appeal parts of the decision, which was, again, I think this doesn't feel like somebody who's trying to work constructively and with the core mission to protect investors.
Well, I want to pivot us to where I want to spend the rest of our time, which is talking about payment rails. Okay, so going back to 2016, 17, there really wasn't the same discussion around. Well, there were discussions about the challenges around payment rails, the challenges around fees, intermediaries, rent seekers, et cetera. But I don't know that a solution had crystallized that early. Maybe by 15, sort of you'd had some of that come together. But I'm curious. I just want to hear how you think about that innovation space, like thinking about the rails themselves, leaving aside the assets flowing on those rails. How do you think about the challenges in existing rail systems, the innovation that is needed, and what kind of gets us to a place where the freer flow of this? I mean, regulation obviously is part of it, but there are other things as well. So speak to that.
Yeah, I think, and you've even heard from, I think earlier today, some phenomenal companies and startups, well, bigger than startups, but interesting companies in the payment space. What's interesting to me is that so many of the companies in the space are building or kind of hacking the existing rails and doing things that I'll almost call a little bit unnatural because of the limitation of the rails. Ripple's view has been, well, let's reset the rail. Now, that's harder. It takes longer. But if you can do that, that unlocks a lot of efficiencies. Because if actually transactions are real time and effectively free, it's an unlock for a lot of activity. We're focused cross border, but it's surprising to me that in the year 2024, we still live in a world that we don't have robust clearing mechanisms, and the U.S. is way behind. I mean, not just on the cross border side, but we've been behind, and so I think, like the earliest days of the Internet of Information, this is kind of the Telecom Deregulation Act of '96. It created rules of the road, which were clear. It allowed entrepreneurship. It allowed investors to flow in. And the U.S. has had massive geopolitical benefits from the fact that we are, in the United States, kind of the center of the Internet of Information. I believe blockchain technologies are going to rewire many parts of our financial systems globally. And I mean financial payments. I mean real estate transactions. I mean title settlement. I mean, pick an example. And I think if you can use a blockchain to reduce friction, reduce cost, eventually that's going to happen. And I think the U.S. should want to be part of the heartbeat around that, as opposed to, as Chris described earlier, effectively creating mechanisms that are driving that offshore to sometimes sketchier sketchier outcomes.